Hey guys, today we're going over modeling ratios or how to solve problems using ratios. If you follow through to the end of this video, you'll be able to get an A for this part of your Australian Year 7 maths curriculum. There'll be 3 parts to this. First we'll be going over what are ratios, then we'll be solving some problems using ratios, then we'll be going over the different representations of ratios. So what are ratios? Ratios are a way of showing how many there are of one thing to how many there are of another. Say for example, we're mixing concrete. For every 2 kilograms of powder, we're gonna add 1 liter of water. So 1 liter of water, 2 liters of concrete. That's all it shows. Now there can be multiple other ways of showing ratios, such as say, we then have another colon separating our numbers, and then we have a 5 here. And that can mean we have 1 liter of water to 5 of something else, including 2 kilograms of powder. There's also other ways of representing ratios. Now we can have 200% concrete powder for every 1 liter of water. Now that's just another way of showing ratios, and they make sense to use at different times. We can also have our fractions 2/1 to represent that mixture of concrete to water. So here's our problem. Our manager of our pizza restaurant wants us to make 100 pepperoni pizzas, and he wants us to lay out all the ingredients before we start doing it. Now we have a ratio of 1 pizza to 2 handfuls of cheese to 5 pepperonis. Now we need to work out how many pepperonis we need, how many handfuls of cheese we need, and how many pizzas we need. So if we take a look here, now we have 100 pepperoni pizzas to 1, so 1 times 100 is going to be 100. And then we're going to have how many handfuls of cheese? 2 times 100, that's going to be 200. And then how many pepperonis? That's going to be 1 times 5, that's going to be 500. Now those were some nice easy numbers to work with, but we're going to try some harder ones now. So guys, in this question we're going to work out how many fish we can have in a 200 liter tank of water. So here we have our ratio of liters to fish. So every 3 fish need 7 liters. And we're going to try using this ratio to work out how many fish we can fit in our 200 liter fish tank. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our liters of water, so 200, and we're going to divide that by our per 7 of liters per fish. So what that's going to look like is we're going to do 200 divided by 7, and that's going to equal 28.5. So dividing by 7, what that did for us was it turned this into a number we can work with. So now it's like a ratio of 3 to 1 here. And so once it's a ratio of 3 to 1, we can now multiply by 3 to then figure out how many fish we can have here. So we're going to do 28.5 times 3, and we get 85.5. So now we know we can fit 85.5 fish in our 200 liter tank. Let's run back through what we did there. We have our amount of water, which is 200 liters, and we have our amount of water to our amount of fish here. So we're going to bring this one down to 3 to 1 by dividing this by 7, which gave us 28.5. And then we're going to do our 3 to 1 ratio. So we're going to multiply this new number by 3 to then get 85.5. And you can solve all of your ratio problems using that method. Divide by what you have and then multiply by what you need. For this next question, let's say that the local council wants 20% more apple trees than we have pear trees. And we also know that we have 200 pear trees. So now, how are we going to find out how many apple trees they want? So what we can do is we can actually turn this into a ratio. Say we have 1 pear tree, and remember we have 20% more apple trees. That's what the council wants. So we're going to do it to 1.2. That's going to be our ratio, because 20%, when we turn that into a decimal, we got to divide by 100. 20 divided by 100 is 0.2. So we add that 0.2 onto our 1, and now we have a ratio of 1 to 1.2. So now that we have it represented as a ratio, we can simply divide what we have by 1. So we're just going to have 200, and we're going to multiply that now by what we want, which is 1.2. So 1.2, or 20% more apple trees. 200 multiplied by 1.2 that's going to be 240 apple trees, and that'll be our answer there. Okay, so when do we use which representation of a ratio at what time? Because all of these are really showing the same thing. Say for every 2 staff members at the school, we want 3 students, or we want 150% of our staff as students, or for every 3 students, we want 2 staff. So they all say the same thing, but they're different representations of it. Now, which ones are more appropriate for which time? So our 2 to 3, that's generally where we don't have anything to begin with. And for every 2 of something, we want to add 3 of the other thing. Say in baking or anything kind of food related where you're adding something in, say 2 eggs to 3 cups of flour. For our percentage, it's generally if we want to add something more, say we want 150% more parking spaces. So for every 1 parking space we have now, we want half an extra parking space, or 150%. And for our division down here, let's go back to our teacher-student example. For every 3 students we have, we want to split them across 2 members of staff. You're not really going to be using this one at the bottom. It's kind of rare that you'd use that one. Maybe you'd use it if it was 1/2 to show that there's half of something, but that's really it. These two at the top here, you'll be using those the most. So thanks for watching, guys. If you're able to do everything I showed you in this video, you should be on your way to getting an A in your Australian Year 7 Maths curriculum. Now, if you learn anything, please leave a like. If you want to learn something new, leave a comment. I'll make a video that you ask for. Otherwise, I have a tutoring service. Go to my channel and you can contact me there to find out more about that. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye. That sucked. Over 1 to represent